You check your account balance on a Tuesday morning, $340. You checked it 18 months ago too, back before the raise. Same number, almost to the dollar. You got the raise. $6,000 a year, enough to matter. You did the math on the drive home that day and felt something open up in your chest. For the first time in a long time, you exhaled. 18 months later, you're making more money than you've ever made in your life, and your bank account doesn't know it. This is the story of how that happens to almost everyone. And the 5 decisions made so quietly you never noticed making them, that are the entire reason. Not 5 circumstances, 5 decisions. By the end of this, you're going to recognize at least 3 of them in your own life. Doctrine 1. The raise disappears before it arrives. The night the new number hits your account, you tell yourself it's going to be different now. You stop flinching at the grocery total. You say yes to dinner without checking first. You upgrade the car, nothing crazy, just a newer model, 72 months, payment barely noticeable. You earned it. You tell yourself that a lot. For about a month, it actually feels like it worked. Then 4 months pass, 5, 6. One night you're paying bills and the number at the bottom of the account looks exactly like it did before the raise. Same tightness by the 24th, same quiet math, just with bigger digits in it now. You scroll back through the statements looking for where it went. There's no single thing, no crisis. Just a life that quietly grew to swallow the raise whole. This has a name. Researchers call it lifestyle inflation. And it's the single most reliable way to guarantee a bigger paycheck never becomes bigger wealth. You didn't fail. You did exactly what you were told to do. You earned more. And the reward vanished into the same place it always vanishes. The place almost nobody can actually see because it never feels like spending. It feels like living. But the raise disappearing isn't even the part that should worry you. Because underneath it, a second decision was already running. One that had been quietly working against you since long before the raise ever showed up. Doctrine 2. You were never actually saving. You were just seeing what survived. Rewind 18 months before the raise. You have a savings account. You deposit into it occasionally, whenever there's something left over at the end of the month. Rent first, bills, groceries, the occasional night out, and then, if anything remains, savings. That's not a savings plan. That's surrender, wearing a budget's clothes. A well-known behavioral study followed 233 wealthy individuals against 128 low-income individuals for 5 years, tracking exactly this habit. The gap was stark. The majority of the struggling group weren't saving consistently at all. Spending came first, saving came last, if it came at all. The wealthy group did the opposite. 10 to 20% moved out automatically, before rent, before anything else got a vote. You never flipped that order. So when the raise came, there was no structure waiting to catch it. The extra money didn't go anywhere on purpose. It just went wherever the month happened to need it, which meant the raise was never really yours. It belonged to whatever was left over, same as everything else always had. And whatever was left over was about to become a much darker number, because a third habit had been quietly compounding this entire time. One you hadn't even noticed was debt, until it stopped feeling optional. Doctrine 3, the gap got financed. 2 years before any of this, you needed a car. The one you could actually afford outright was fine, reliable, unremarkable, paid for. You financed a nicer one instead, 72 months. The payment felt small enough to ignore. Then a credit card for the month rent, and a car repair landed in the same week. You paid it down eventually. Mostly. A second card followed, a rewards card this time, a sign-up bonus too good to pass on. You spent $4,000 in 3 months chasing 60,000 points. By the time the raise arrived, you weren't starting from zero. You were starting from behind. A car payment, 2 card balances, minimum payments made on time every month, principal barely moving underneath them. Thomas Stanley's decades of research into self-made wealth found this same pattern in household after household. People who never build wealth usually aren't earning less. They're financing the difference. At interest rates that would be unthinkable anywhere else. For things that are landfill within a year. The raise didn't rescue you from this. It just made the monthly math easier to ignore for a little while longer. The debt was still there, quietly collecting, waiting for the 1 month everything else went wrong at the same time. 3 doctrines down, 2 to go. And the next one is the quietest of all 5, which is exactly why it's the most dangerous. If you're starting to recognize yourself in some of this, that's not a coincidence, and it's worth sticking around for the reveal at the end. If this channel's your kind of thing, subscribe now so the next one finds you. Cold Money Doctrine posts a new breakdown like this every week. And here's the part that actually explains why you never noticed any of this happening in real time. Because for 2 hours almost every night, your attention was somewhere else entirely. Doctrine 4. Your evenings were already spent. 10:30 at night, you're in bed, phone in hand, thumb moving without much input from you, someone your age, standing next to something you can't afford, explaining how they did it. You watch 4 more like it. 45 minutes gone. You don't remember deciding to spend them. This is the quiet one. Long-term behavioral tracking of wealthy individuals turned up something almost too simple to believe. The overwhelming majority reported consistent, deliberate reading, not entertainment, material chosen specifically to make them harder to replace. You weren't lazy. You worked hard, genuinely. But the 2 or 3 hours a night that could have built the one asset immune to layoffs, inflation, and bad months, your own skill, were already spoken for, one video at a time, by an algorithm with no interest in your future whatsoever. Skill compounds the same way debt does. Yours simply wasn't given anything to compound with. But even this, the raise, the savings, the debt, the evenings, still isn't the real reason you never noticed the pattern until it was 18 months deep. There's one more piece, and it's the one almost nobody wants to hear, because it isn't about money at all. Doctrine 5, nobody around you was building anything either. You have a group chat, 5 people since college. Every few months, someone brings up money, usually as a joke, sometimes as a complaint. Nobody ever brings up a plan. When you mentioned once that you were thinking about cutting back to pay off a card faster, the response was gentle mockery, not cruel, just enough to make you not bring it up again. Here's the detail that should actually stop you. When researchers mapped this exact pattern across income groups, one factor separated the wealthy from the struggling more cleanly than almost any other. Not income, not education, but who they chose to spend time with. The wealthy group overwhelmingly surrounded themselves with other ambitious, strategic people. The struggling group, almost entirely, did not. You weren't weak for staying quiet in that group chat. You were doing what proximity does to everyone eventually. Your habits are an average of the 5 people closest to you. And, if none of the 5 are building anything, going quiet about the fact that you're trying to becomes the price of staying in the group. Here's the reveal. None of these 5 on their own would have kept you stuck. A slightly nicer car, a slightly delayed savings habit, a slightly convenient card, a slightly numbing scroll session, a slightly quiet group chat. Each one alone is completely forgettable. That's exactly why none of them ever felt like a decision. 18 months after the raise, your net worth hasn't moved. Not because you earned too little, because 5 reasonable, forgettable choices were quietly running underneath the number the entire time. And the raise was never big enough to outrun all 5 at once. The good news is none of this required more income to break in the first place. It requires redirection of money, of attention, of company, and that's available starting today. Not something that shows up with the next raise. Your story isn't finished. It's just the version of the story most people never get to see clearly enough to change. If you recognize more than one of these 5 in your own life, that's not an accident either. That's the entire point of naming them. Subscribe if you're ready to stop being the explanation and start being the exception.